Now, in my view, the real problem with feminists is that there aren't enough of them. So what do I mean by feminist? I mean a person, male or female, who recognises the capacity and right of women to be and do all that men can be and do. By feminist, I mean a person who believes we ought to have the sort of gender-blind world that would see women, 51% of the population, distributed through all levels of society in proportion to their numbers. A world in which, on current figures, women, to quote Eddie Murphy, get half. Feminists fight for a world in which gender may be a noticeable personal characteristic like eye or hair colour, but not one that plays a determining role in one's opportunities or life chances. The end goal of feminists, in other words, is to build a world in which the need for them withers away. Now, most would acknowledge that in Australia in 2011, we are not yet in that place. Not yet in a place where we no longer need feminists naming and opposing gender inequities. For the unconvinced, I offer a few statistics. Women make up 46% of the Australian labour force. They make up 51% of professionals and 50% of university graduates. So there indeed we are half. Despite this, in 2010, just 2.5% of ASX 200 chairpeople were female, 3% of CEOs were female, just 11% of members of ASX company boards were female, and just 30% of parliamentarians are female, and far fewer of these have safe seats or ministerial posts. And of course, for every dollar a man earns, an Australian woman makes just 83 cents. Now, this figure, in fact, has gone worse in recent years, not better, and it varies across the country. So in WA, for instance, women make only 75 cents to every West Australian man's dollar. Now, it would be clear to those who've already read my novel, and perhaps most of you haven't, The Book of Rachel, that the situation faced by contemporary Australian women is far better than that encountered by women living in the Middle East 2,000-odd years ago. However, we are still a fair way from full equality. So, what's a feminist novelist to do? That women are still some way from full equality raises some questions for female novelists. If we know these stats and we worry about them, what responsibilities do we have when we sit down to write? If I'm to stand by my opening assertion that the problem with feminists is that there aren't enough of them, then given I am one, what does this oblige me to do when it comes to the content of my work? Are feminist fiction writers duty-bound to write books that show how great women are? Or is it just enough that we show women? I was given to think about this recently because of the Barbara Jefferis Award. Novel writing makes you poor. If I cashed out my hourly rate for the time it took me to pen The Book of Rachel, it would be less than 1 cent an hour. I wish I was joking about this, but I'm actually not. So when notification of the following prize came across my desk recently, I was very want in fact, to pay attention. The award is described as follows. The Barbara Jefferis Award is offered annually for the best novel written by any Australian author that depicts women and girls in a positive way, or otherwise empowers the status of women and girls in society. In 2011, the award is valued at $35,000. Now, as it happens, I feel relatively confident that The Book of Rachel could be a contender for the 2012 Barbara Jefferis Award. Why? Because on the whole, it does meet both of the criterion specified for the successful contender. The Book of Rachel does depict women and girls in a positive way, and it does empower the status of women and girls in society. However, because I'm contrary by nature, and because the Wheeler Soapbox Forum is one that encourages, nay requests, contrariness, I want to press the pause button on the usual celebratory moment when author in need of a prize meets prize for which she is eligible. Perhaps we can return to the fruit of such joyous matchmaking later on. But for now, I'd like to cast a critical eye over the 2 criteria specified for a fictional work to be eligible for the Barbara Jefferis Prize. These are that the work depicts women and girls in a positive way and empowers the status of women and girls in society. So what does depicting women and girls in a positive way mean? Is depicting women and girls in a positive way something any feminist writer worth her salt should be doing and encouraging others of her fictional ilk to do? I'm going to try to answer the second question first, in the belief that having done this, the answer to the first will become clearer. So here goes. There's been talk in recent years about positive role models. Role models are people others look up to and admire. They inspire and motivate others to accomplish their dreams, and for the most part, role models are real-life forces in the lives of others, though celebrities and sports heroes may be idealized and serve as a source of inspiration too. Can fictional characters be role models? I read heaps as a child, and while I was very influenced by what I read, I don't recall seeing, quote, positively depicted fictional characters as role models. Indeed, while I was very influenced in my emotional and psychic development by fiction, my recollection is of being guided by the villainous and disempowered characters in novels as much as by the heroic and vanquishing ones. Certainly, I made equal note of the achievements and mistakes in the lives of fictional characters like Sarah and Lavinia in Hodges Burnett's A Little Princess, the bullying Jill Brenner in Judy Blume's Blubber, and the downtrodden, victimised Francie in Daddy Was a Number Runner. My relationship with all of these characters was rich and complex. I learned from their carelessness, their ignorance, their fear, their courage, their powerlessness, and their cruelty. In my own novel, The Book of Rachel, Rachel's mother Miriam is not depicted in a positive way. She is a largely unsympathetic character whose seeming inability to love hopefully offers insight into the dilemmas faced by a mother raising daughters in a horrendously sexist world. So let's return to the idea I offered you at the beginning about feminism, that it is a political movement that's aim is not just to give women the chance to shine, but also to be mediocre. To my mind, women shouldn't need to prove they're better than men to deserve their fair share of life's opportunities. That they're human and it's only fair should be enough. On this account, Julia Gillard doesn't have to be a good Prime Minister for those who supported her to be PM to be vindicated. As I wrote in my Moral Dilemma column at the time she assumed the Prime Ministership, having a female PM meant both nothing and everything. It meant nothing because women in power are no different to men. It meant everything because the paltry representation or absence of women in roles that are valued, visible, and influential has a cancerous effect on female self-esteem. Young girls can't see it, so they don't dream it. If we apply these insights to fiction, what does it tell us about a duty female fiction writers might have to depict women and girls in a positive way? I think what it tells us is that this can only be our obligation if making girls and women visible in our stories is what is understood to be both positive and empowering. Yes, female characters, girls and women, must populate the world of fiction. They and their triumphs and struggles, their attributes and their flaws must be seen. But just like their real-life counterparts, fictional females don't need to be good or virtuous or admirable to be entitled to half. In their case, to half of the space and stories our culture tells about itself to itself. Fictional girls and women belong there, influencing the hearts and minds of young and old alike with their heroism and with their mendacity. They belong there for no other reason that they comprise half the membership of the species Homo sapien, about whom we write most of our stories and for whom these stories are written. Thank you very much.